Pledge of Allegiance this evening. That's good.
Salute the United. There you go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the Oklahoma flag. I salute the flag of the state of Oklahoma. Its symbols of peace unite all people. Thank you. Good job.
Get a picture.
Item 5, the following concern reports and items that are routine nature normally approved at a board meeting or at board meetings and will be approved by one vote unless any board member desires a separate vote on any or all these items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and approval of the following items. A, minutes of the November 11th, 2019 board meeting. B, treasurer's report for November 2019. And C, general fund expenditure comparison analysis for December 9th, 2019. Classroom Teachers Association.
We haven't done anything since last month. We'll have some activity in January, but nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Item number 8 is the principal's report. We'll be discussing state test scores. We'll start.
With me? All right. Well, our score had gone down. It is overall a D. Which it was pretty close to a C, when I think Mr. Williams gave you all printout of the schools around us, and the state upped its game a little bit this year, and so everybody went down, which, that is what it is. What I look at when I look at this, just from having some experience, academic growth, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It is what hurt us. But when I look at the indicator of academic achievement, how prepared are the students for the next grade or course level, we were above the state level on that. So that's great. It's not where I want it to be. So what we're going to do was a change next year that I had seen a need for anyway, and actually talked to the teachers about it before it came out. But in the 4th and 5th, our grades that are tested are 3rd, 4th, and 5th. In the 4th and 5th grade, we have 2 teachers per grade level. And what we're going to do next year, we get to add one at Christmas. Kim Parrott's going to join us. She's finished over here, so that's going to lessen the load of our 4th grade teachers. But what happens is the kids are divided up and they just rotate with each other. So in our tested areas, in 5th grade, I've got one teacher responsible for 2 tested areas, plus her other things, plus having the kids all day. So what I've talked to them about, which all 4 of our teachers are excited, is I want to run it like a middle school. That's where my experience is, and it's really a good thing. One teacher can specialize, like we'll have one of the teachers for math, one of the teachers for science, one of the teachers for social studies, one for language arts, and one for reading. so they can rotate to those classes, our 4th and 5th grade. So that puts, let's take for instance Mrs. Voss. She'll be responsible for 4th grade math and 5th grade math. So she can specialize in that area. It will be less work on her, which she doesn't care about that. But what the important thing is she can specialize in that field. She'll also loop with those kids. So when they come out of 3rd grade, they'll go into 4th grade. She will know exactly where they're at when they leave 4th grade and grow them from there into 5th grade. And it will just be a good way to do it. They were all really excited about it. They said, we'll help you with the scheduling. I said, okay, great. And so I think it's going to be a good thing. I think that will help us tremendously in those 2 tested, or in all 3 tested areas of 5th grade. We're also going to add project-based learning, and we're adding it as a class next year. So that will give us another teacher that will also pull out and learn on those thinking skills. The academic growth piece, that's what brought us down. As you can see, we have 2 C's and 1 D. It brought us down. We received little points when I went through it in special education. We had a couple things happen, and I know excuses are not a good thing, but we lost a teacher in December, and we weren't able to replace her. So we had 1 teacher that had the load for our entire building. We replaced that person, but when in our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade areas, those when they go into that room, it's still crowded. It's more than there should be. It should be a low number of kids in there, and it's not, because she sees everybody in all those grade levels for reading at one time. So by specializing and rotating our kids, she will get to have 5 different reading classes. So they're going to be divided up in 5 different, so it's going to lower our numbers tremendously. So it's going to help there too. It may not help this year in 2020, but it'll help in 2021. And our demographics in this area changed tremendously. Where we had 105 tests filtered through the year before, we only had 85 that hit a filter this year. So that was a huge difference. Chronic absenteeism, bless our children's hearts, parents have to bring them. They can't drive, so it's not actually up to that student whether they come or not. It's up to the parents. Sometimes that's hard. I've got, I can't speak for the year that this was the score, but I know this year we have several, in fact, issues where the kids maybe go see a different parent and they're not brought back on time, or we might have a problem. I called the state about this to ask what we could do, and he said that everybody in Oklahoma is kind of in the same boat. And he had one, for instance, at a school in southern Oklahoma where a judge ruled that the child be in this school one week and the other school the next week. And he said, and we don't know how we're going to deal with that because you can't double enroll, So that's something that the state, that's something that's way over what we can do, and I think it'll get better. Luckily, we don't have that. We have a couple that are working things out, but I think it'll get better. This year, and like I said, I can't speak for that last year, but I'm thinking that it's similar. I had 17 students that went over their absences, and only 3 of those didn't have excused absences out of the 17. I mean, they all have doctor's notes, or the state doesn't really care whether they're excused or unexcused, but that makes it hard. And we'll work on that. We're talking about, can we schedule appointments at a different time or do things like that. And that's just where we're at on the report card. Like I said, what I'm really concerned about is the academic achievement, and I was really pleased for that. We have a great bunch of teachers, and they give it their all every day, and they work really hard. So tomorrow we have Farm to You. If you haven't got a chance to go through that, it's real interesting. And if you ever get a chance to come to one of our music programs, we just had a 3rd and a 5th grade music program where they played their recorders, and the 4th grade did all the decorations, and it was just amazing. And we have a lot of talented kids. So that's about it, unless you guys have any questions. All right.
Mr. Sexton.
I've been doing this for 39 years, and I'll tell you that it's nice to see that the state of Oklahoma is looking at growth, academic growth, for the first time. And that's where I would hope that all of us would place our emphasis, is that this child is here, this child is here. We want them both to grow at least a year's worth in the school year. So that's why, you know, I see some value in this report card, but there's other factors that it would take me a long time to explain why I do not like this report card as a measurement of how hard our teachers work and the results. So in our academic achievement, we scored 21 points out of 35. We were well above the state average with 61% as opposed to 39. Academic growth, which is really where the challenge is, it's where both my colleagues' challenges are. We were able to also beat the state average on that. We received a C on our academic achievement and a B on our academic growth. And I will attribute the academic growth and achievement to the fact that our kids have 90 minutes of math and reading. We started that 2 years ago, where they go in the morning and they go back in the afternoon. And when we went to 8 hours, it was flexible enough that I could do that. And I believe it's having an impact. I really do. Our chronic absenteeism is just a smidge above the state average, and it's something that I'm not real pleased with, because there's not anything more important on these grade cards you look at than a student being in school. And Ron's going to talk about what we're going to do as a secondary school. Actually, we're going to do it as a district, and I hope that has an impact as well. Our students of the month in September was Walter Rush, Avery Parrott, Kennedy Newble, Jacob Horner, Rosalind Johnson, and Zach Zapala. October was Brooke Malone, Dylan Hamilton, Gabby Parrott, Preston Burr, Danica Johnston, and Ben Morris. We started a Lego club. I had a student come to me wanting to start a Lego club, and so I said I'll sponsor it. We had 30 kids show up, 30 of them, wanting to be in the club. I thought over Thanksgiving, what am I going to do? So I put it on Facebook. I started to GoFundMe. And Tracy will attribute, the kits just started flowing in. Lego kits, different kinds. We had our first meeting, and for 70 minutes, those kids sat down and worked on those Legos and never looked up. It was amazing. So I'm really, really pleased with that.
And some of those kids cannot sit still
No,
at all.
no.
So when do you have this club? Like,
It's every Tuesday after school
okay.
until 4:30. Come join us. We had our second PTO meeting on December 3rd. It's a challenge. It really is a challenge. We did increase the number. We had 7 parents represented. We had about 3 staff there. I was given the suggestion to maybe we can feed them. It's at 6 o'clock in the evening, so I'm going to find a way to get some pizzas there in January. Just keep hacking at it. Mr. Fitzgerald has taken his 7th grade classes to Channel 8 News Station this week. They're in a weather unit, And so he's been in touch with the meteorologist there. They're going to go down, sit, and watch a news event.
Newscast.
Yeah, newscast. Thank you, media person. Watch a newscast. I hope they can be quiet. Anyway, it ought to be a great trip for them. Football's completed their season, and basketball's gearing up now. The Living Word Family Church is in their, I think, third year of taking some of our kids shopping. So December 14th, they're going to take 8 of our kids and their siblings to the mall in Tulsa, and they're going to just let them go and basically get what you need. And it's an incredible experience. Our GT program is up and running, and we just received I think it was a $5,000 grant for our makerspace. A makerspace is going to include a CNC router and a 3D printer, and we're going to just add to that. So it's not just for GT kids. It's going to be for all our kids that want to come in and use those really up-to-date machines, what they find in industry today. DARE's going on in Mr. Cates' class. I don't know, last week, State Farm brought some little cars that you pedal. So they put some goggles on them that impair their vision, and they had to go through an obstacle course. And it was a sight to behold. So, and you just hope that they get the message. So, the Nowata Music Boosters chili dinners to the 8th. Hopefully everybody can come and support our music program. And our our next MAP assessment will be in January. The MAP test is where we put all of our emphasis. I mean, we really do, because it shows us growth in kids. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Sexton? Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, we put this first page together for you. Just as the schools we listed here are based on our football schedule minus Metro Christian, because they don't take these tests. They do whatever they do. They're private school. I mean, I guess I don't know what to say. And by the way, this is all public now. All I can do is go Google, look it up. But I mean, when you look at this, apparently all these schools are just a bunch of kids making D's, and teachers doing D work, and principals doing D work, and it just makes no sense to me. I just feel like the state of Oklahoma is as much good as our state department does, and they are some good people, and they do some good things. On this, we can't get out of our own way. And I really feel that way. You know, both these two talked about growth. We can't show growth in the high school because it's just the juniors taking the ACT test. So after, this year's juniors took it, or last year's juniors took it, this year's juniors are going to take it. I guess I don't know how you show growth when there's different kids taking it, right? I mean, it's just a picture of one day at one time and how our kids do that day. But I will show you, I gave you a copy of the ACT page. One thing I am proud of, I'm very proud of this. If you look at the far right, that top box, if you look at the far right-hand side, it's the composite scores. Ours, like everybody else's, dropped. Actually, the state's dropped every year for the last 4 or 5 or 6 years, whatever it's shown, they've dropped every year. 2 or 3 years ago, I started going back up. And if you'll notice on the very far left, in 2015, we only tested 29 kids. Then that number went up significantly because we started having to test everybody. And that's something that's significant. Because think about this. And we don't have 70% of our kids go to college. But if we had 70% go to college, that means 30% of the kids we make take the test don't have to take it for any reason, but we're making them take it. They don't need it for a tech school. They don't need it for the military. They don't need it for whatever it is that they're going to do. We are literally forcing them to take a test. How good are they going to do? I mean, they're certainly not going to blow the top off of it just because they like us, right? It is what it is. So our numbers have actually been able to go back up the last year or two, even though every kid is taking that test now. And I'm actually glad every kid takes it, because that's what education is supposed to be, right? Everyone's supposed to be included all the time. That's awesome. But it can, depending on what school district you're in, kind of skew a one-day picture of a test score. because there are districts where 70% of the kids do go to college. And that's kind of a different animal to complain about. But back on this first page that I gave you, it shows you the indicators that the state averages are basically D's and C's. What that is, and I think Bud gave you a copy of this too, but if you look at a paper that looks like this, when you look at mine, or when you look at the middle schools, it shows you all those indicators. We just gave the information that the state also came out with D's and C's. On these indicators, there are a couple of them I actually really like. I really like the cardiac absenteeism thing. I don't like the way they report it, but I like the fact they're paying attention to it. Because if we can't get kids here, we can't teach them anything. And there are some things we can do. The project-based learning stuff is helping, I think. I really do. We're going to ask you folks to amend our attendance policy so that it's 8 days a semester a kid can miss and not 10. Because if they miss, I think it's 16 and a half or 17 is the magic number. They miss 17 days a year, they're chronically absent. Well, we have some really good kids who know they can miss 9 or 10 with no problems. They're making A's and B's and they miss their 9 days. I mean, part of me doesn't blame them because I was there one day also. But the other part of me is like, man, that really just hurt me because now we're a C or a B or a D or whatever, not an A or a B. So if we could amend that. The other thing we're going to do is talk about a reward system for kiddos that only missed. We'll have to put it together. But if you miss, let's just randomly say if you miss 3 days or less, you don't take finals for the semester. Or you can take the final, and if you improve your grade, great. If you don't improve your grade, then you don't do that final doesn't count. So we have to come up with some kind of an incentive to get kids to come. So just a couple of ideas there. I also like the post-secondary opportunities piece of this because that's something that every kid can do. You don't have to be a kid who can earn enrollment. You can be a kid taking a Tri-County Tech course that you get a certification in. Those kids get post-secondary as well. The Project Lead the Way classes that we're going to have across the district next year, but we have them in some courses right now, those classes count. The mentors, most of the things that Jesse Ferguson's hired to work on will count towards this post-secondary stuff. So I really believe that schools can do a really good job with that. And that might be the most important thing we do. It really might be, in the end of all this, the most important thing that we do. The graduation piece, we're sitting at a D at graduation. But, I mean, we had 4, I believe, kids last year. And you mentioned that deal with the judge. Some of our kids would come to us and go, hey, a judge told me to enroll here. Maybe not Judge Gibson, but some judge somewhere. I have to prove I'm enrolled in school. Well, they'll prove they're enrolled. And once they prove they're enrolled, they don't show up again. We had 4 of those last year. And 4 kids that just don't show up again, it doesn't matter where they're actually living. The last known school of record was us. And we make them bring in proof of wherever they're living. We make them bring in a water bill, prove they're actually paying a bill in Nowata County or in our district. And but once they submit all that stuff to that judge, the judge is done with them, and we never see them again. So some good to all this stuff for sure. But like I said, you can't convince me that every one of these kids in every one of these schools, and even, there's one school in here in particular that has a pretty high socioeconomic group. Pretty high group in terms of that, and they're still not scoring well. So even those schools are struggling with this whole thing, and you can't convince me in all these schools when there's just one A, and that Salina Middle School made an A, and there's a C or a D on either side of that. That A is an outlier. It's not like there's something they're doing special there. That A is an outlier for some reason. That this is accurate. It's not a good picture, but it is what we have to live with, and it is what we have to report to you. And so we're going to do our best to make the best of what it is and focus on the things that we can truly affect and try to give our kids the best chances that we can.
Who I talked to from the State Department was pretty frustrated with it also. I mean, and I understand their concept, what they're trying to do, but it would be a hard thing to do. And then we've got, I don't know.
Kids aren't a final product. At the end of the day, we're treating them like a final product. And you can't do that with people.
One last last comment, because I said I wouldn't dive deep into this, but I need you all to know this. This report card reporting started about the same time that the Oklahoma State standards were raised. In other words, our teachers got new objectives, new standards.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And it's going to take a while for our kids to score better on those state assessments and our teachers to prepare them to do so. And so that has a lot to do with it as well.
Any questions for Mr. Williams or any of the others? Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you all for the information this evening. Excuse me, item number 9 is superintendent's report.
The report card is what it is. I told you before, and I'll tell you again, we really put our stock into the map testing. We can show, we give it 3 times a year. We give it at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. And we can show growth with our high school kids using that criteria because we have the data to back it up. So
In the map testing, absolutely.
yes, that's where I'd hang my hat, because we can. I mean, if you guys want to come in and we can show you the numbers that even we want to, we can pull them up. We can show you splatter charts and all kinds of different ways that we look at, try to focus in on the kids at where we help them the most, so we can get those kids to grow.
I mean, come to Master's room and watch the kids who actually had to build their own tour. Not go find one and put it on the goggles. They had to go build their own tour and make it play on the goggles. And it's every bit as clear and it is every bit as good as the ones that Google Expeditions already has. That's pretty good stuff.
A few other things. The project-based learning is, I think it's taking a hold across the district. It seems to be doing very well. I think that does encourage kids to stay here at school. One thing that I have been working on recently is I just submitted on Friday was a grant to the John Deere Foundation for $60,000 over a 3-year period. $34,000 the first year, $17,000 the second year, and $5,000 the last year to implement the Project Lead the Way curriculum in the middle school, or the elementary school, expanded in the middle school and expanded in the high school. So I should find out about that in February. I'm excited about that. Still beginning to work on the 21st Century Learning Grant. Those are due in April. So we've got a lot of things going and a lot of good things going. So very excited about where we're headed and what's going on.
Any questions for Mr. Chairman? Thank you. We'll move to item number 10, which is general business. A is vote to approve or not to approve raising the ticket prices for middle school sports to $5 for adults and $3 for students and seniors, or table action on this item.
This is kind of the price. We've compared all the people around us. We're lower than everybody. This is kind of the standard rate. I would recommend that you approve it.
Make a motion to approve the rate increase for the ticket prices.
Have a motion to approve item A. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion to approve and a second for item A. Tracy?
Alec?
Yes.
Molly?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Bashford?
No.
Motion passes 3-1. Item B, the board will vote to approve or not to approve updated procurement policies to eliminate the word food in the title and to include the procurement of food products, supplies, or equipment with state and federal funds for the school district, or table action on this item.
It's a policy we've always had, except it was just for food procurement. They've marked out the word food, and now it's for anything that we
Just
procure.
general, instead of being specifically for food now, it's just a general policy versus what it used to be. And we have to have one in place to be able to purchase things. I would recommend that we approve that.
Are there any questions on that item?
There's this attached back in.
Because I saw Markeisha looking at it. So it's just policy update as recommended.
Yeah.
By OSSB.
Are there any questions, or if not, is there a motion for that item?
So these funds come out of the general fund and is for anything, including food? Is that what I'm understanding?
It's just a procedure, like if we get,
Purchasing procedure.
so if we're gonna buy anything, this just outlines the procedures that we have to go through, like we have to go up to bid at a certain threshold, or if there's not doesn't meet the bid threshold, then we compare multiple sources, find the best price, and go with that.
I make a motion to approve item B to update the policy for the procurement.
I have a motion to approve item B. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Ms. Tracy?
Hallett?
Yes.
Molly?
Yes.
Teal?
Yes.
Bashford?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Item C, consideration, motion, and vote to convene into an executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment, hiring, appointment, promotion, discipline, or resignation of any salaried public officer or employee in accordance with the Oklahoma Statute Title 25 in the section noted below, and in particular, discussion of the following matters proposed. Number one, evaluation of the superintendent for the 2020-2021 school year, section 307B1. Number two, discussion of superintendent's contract for the 2020-2021 school year pursuant to section 307B1.
Make a motion to convene into executive session.
Have a motion to convene. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to convene into executive session?
Hallett?
Yes.
Molly? Yes. Teal?
Yes.
Bashford?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.